As a kid, I remember one of the things I always wanted was a Pokemon game where you could actually play as the Pokemon. It was always fun thinking about what adventures they'd get up to without any trainers around to order them to battle each other. Like, does anyone remember that one episode of the anime where all the Pokemon went on vacation? They all had to work together to rescue Charizard's head from a rock? That short alone was enough to get my imagination going about what a Pokemon world without humans would be like. It wasn't until a friend turned me on to the Mystery Dungeon series years later that I'd finally get to see that world for myself. It's a game that's gotten requested a ton in our other Pokemon videos, and that always surprised me because I never hear about them anymore these days. The Mystery Dungeon series was probably my favorite Pokemon spin-off by a long shot, but fast forward to almost 20 years later, and I find myself wondering if the games are actually as good as I remember them. Was it all just a bunch of nostalgia, or do they hold up to modern gaming standards?
I'm so excited about this.
Recent entries in the Pokemon series have certainly been missing their polish, but are we all looking at the old games with rose-tinted glasses? Having me replay them retrospectively comes with the baggage of already having my own opinions. I think the best way to find an answer is by sending in our dedicated gamer guinea pig, in the form of my girlfriend, to see what she thinks of them.
I've never known Pokemon to be able to talk before.
Without the nostalgia bias, she'll have nothing but novelty of playing as a Pokemon to go off of. And hopefully along the way, we'll find out if Pokemon Mystery Dungeon was as good as we all remember.
Where am I? Oh my god. Am I dreaming this? Oh my god.
The basic premise of the game is that the player character is an amnesiac human turned Pokemon who can't remember anything from before their transformation. The game starts out with a personality quiz to determine which Pokemon she'll be turned into.
A personality test? Oh, I love those.
Depending on how you answer these questions, you'll be assigned a nature, and then answering boy or girl determines the Pokemon assigned to said nature.
There's a bucket. If you put water in it, how high will you fill it? Probably about half, that way I don't spill anything when I carry it.
A lot of the Pokemon are actually gender locked depending on whether you pick boy or girl. So I was hoping she might roll one of the girl ones since I never played them as a kid. But instead she just ended up as a basic Bulbasaur.
Bulbasaur! Baby Bug! Yo!
Back in the day, I remember resetting the game over and over again, trying to get the specific Pokemon I wanted, but my girlfriend's much more laid back and willing to accept that this personality quiz from 2005 is the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help her Arceus.
As well as a little careless. Oh no. And even a little sloppy? It just keeps going and going.
Following the quiz, she gets to pick and name her partner Pokemon who will accompany her through the main story of the game. Pretty much zero hesitation, she landed on a Charmander, named it after me, which I shouldn't be too surprised about. I guess in more ways than one, we're experiencing this game together.
Yeah! Noiki's my partner. Okay, we're all set. Wait, they didn't ask me what my name was. They just asked me if I was a boy or a girl.
The story begins with my girlfriend waking up in the middle of a field with her soon-to-be best friend Charmander asking if everything's alright.
Oh my god!
Great, you're finally awake. Right away, the question of why she's been turned into a Bulbasaur comes up, but before there's time to unpack everything that's going on, she gets thrust into her first dungeon of the game to rescue a lost baby Caterpie.
It's horrible! My Caterpie fell into a cap. My poor baby! This is a mom! I have to help a mom find her baby!
So if you want to incentivize my girlfriend to go out of her way to help people, this is the way to do it. If the first mission was just to find a lost item or something, she'd probably be a lot more resistant to learning these new mechanics. But since a baby Caterpillar's on the line, she's more than willing to fumble her way through learning to reunite the child with his mama.
Head for the destination by attacking foes with A. Try not to let your partner fade. Oh shit, okay. Look at them, they're dancing.
This is her first taste of how a Mystery Dungeon works, and thankfully it's a relatively harmless dungeon for her to get her bearings in. Essentially the game's still turn-based, but movement is added as a new component to your basic Pokemon battles. The dungeons operate on a grid system, and aside from your bread and butter items and Pokemon attacks, movement also counts as using a turn. Your basic goal is to navigate the floor of a dungeon and find the stairs to proceed deeper until you eventually get to the end.
So if I explore more, do I just like find stuff?
Get a little clunky at times because you have to use the start button or the touchscreen to change direction. As a kid, I remember not knowing how to do this when I first started and getting really frustrated when I tried to rescue Pokemon, kept switching places with them over and over instead. Luckily, my girlfriend's a lot smarter than 10-year-olds, so she managed just fine.
Oh, I see. Oh my god, I took 4 damage.
Turns can go by really quickly when there aren't a lot of Pokemon around, but things get a little more complex when your rescue team encounters wild Pokemon in the dungeons. When entire groups of enemies roll up on your team, turns often become a game of chess where you need to move and attack with different team members to come out on top. Positioning plays a big part in the strategy here, and items have way more uses than just healing or statuses. But for now, she's pretty safe to just bump attack her way to the Caterpie.
I found the baby, and he's crying! Oh my god.
With the Caterpie saved, her new friend asks if she wants to help them form a rescue team together. Basically, a lot of natural calamities have been taking place all over the Pokemon world, and rescue teams have formed to help Pokemon in need. Since my girlfriend doesn't have much else going on in her new life as a Bulbasaur, she agrees, and the two of them form their business together under a familiar name.
Tarny and Noiki began their careers together. Okay, everybody, that's how Boy Meets Girl got started.
The early game missions are fairly straightforward, following a pattern of unlocking a new dungeon and then having to make it all the way to the end to complete the story mission. In between these story missions, the team can take jobs from the bulletin board on the other side of town and complete smaller missions that usually reward things like money or useful items.
And then I just talk to it. Is that A?
The first major boss fight of any story mission comes from the third dungeon in the game, Mount Steel. This is where I made a surprising revelation.
Oh my god, Tarny was just taken out. Tyrogue.
I don't know why it took having my girlfriend play this game for me to realize this, but every major boss battle, aside from one in this game, is part flying type. The boss of Mount Steel is a Skarmory, which wasn't too much trouble since their steel typing meant Charmander was able to put in some serious work. But watching this made me realize the absolute grind she was in for down the line.
I did 99 damage to this Geodude.
It's a shame the grass types always get shafted like this, but the combat is usable enough it shouldn't be too bad once she gets her hands on some of the more OP moves. I'll get into it more later, but not all moves translated well to the grid system, and the result was some becoming completely useless and others becoming utterly monstrous tools of destruction.
Vine Whip, it's so good, but I'm starting to run out of the PP and I'm only on floor 6. I don't know what I'm gonna encounter, you know?
You'd think with the abundance of water-type Pokemon in the third generation, grass would really shine here, but for whatever reason, all the ocean and lake dungeons are saved for the post-game in this title. I wish I knew who the grass type hurt so badly that they keep getting thrown under the bus, but at the end of the day, it might just be a Gen 3 thing.
Nice. Good work, Noiki boy.
So anyways, after beating up the Skarmory, the team can't figure out how to reach the captive Diglett. Thankfully, some of the Magnemites she helped rescue from earlier came to save the day.
The Magnemites we saved earlier!
This sparks the idea of asking them to join the rescue team.
They're joining our rescue team! Ah! New members!
But the issue of where they could live comes up, and they have to turn us down. The good news is, this gives the game the nice opportunity to teach us how additional party members work the next day.
Friends are my treasures.
Probably one of the more hotly debated systems I've seen in this game is the Friends Area system. To my knowledge, this isn't something that makes a return in the future titles, but don't quote me on it because I haven't played the Switch ones. Either way, in the Rescue Team games, the way it works is you essentially purchase habitats for different Pokemon evolution lines to live in. Filling them out is sort of like this game's version of the Pokédex, and it was always something I wanted to try doing as a kid. I never did though. That's partially due to why it's such a hot topic with these games. That's the tediousness of it all.
I fight people who live in the front area and then they might ask to join my team. I don't understand. They're coming back, Jack! They want to be part of my team! This is what I was hoping for.
Basically, you have to purchase the area in order for the Pokemon to consider joining the team, and even then, certain Pokemon are unreasonably difficult to recruit. Aside from that, each time you want to go out on a mission with a Pokemon, you have to go and find them in their specific area and recruit them. This isn't such a big deal in theory, but it even started to grate on my girlfriend having to set things up after each and every mission.
Wait, I have to ask Geodude every single time? How do I leave?
I can see where the gripes come from, but I think why I look at them so fondly ties back into the story I shared at the beginning of the video. To me, it was always so neat to see Pokemon roaming around in their natural habitats, just being animals. As a kid, it wasn't as much a game as it was a world, and I have vivid memories going to the different areas not just to add members of the team, but actually check up on them and see how they were doing. Revisiting the title with my girlfriend, I still feel that way to an extent.
I thought I was just saying goodbye when I was leaving. That is very misleading. I could have done that to like my favorite Pokemon as a kid and then start crying.
And I compare the feelings to how I felt the first time I watched the Pokemon roaming around a game like Legends Arceus. There's something unique about seeing them act like more than just little sprites with stats and moves. The friend areas always felt like some kind of Pokemon zoo. Anyways, after purchasing some new Pokemon real estate, my girlfriend eavesdrops on some Jumpluff who need help with a rescue team made up entirely of nutmegs, but they don't want to help out because it doesn't pay enough. That's when this fully evolved Strike Force, complete with perfect IVs and EVs, rolls up and convinces them to go help anyways.
Oh my god! There's a whole... There's a Charmander and a Kadabra and a Terator!
Everyone starts losing their mind over these guys because their rescue team's gold rank and whatnot, but we're into the new kids on the block and we've never heard of them.
And they just walked up and I was like, oh goddamn, they're like max level evolved.
Max kids.
Yeah. they know what's what.
They'll become important much later, but for now we'll just call them Team Act. So all that drama out of the way, she could finally get back to rescuing and recruiting Pokemon. At some point here in the main story, she starts having these psychedelic dream sequences that help to unfold some of the mysteries surrounding why she became a Pokemon. But for the time being, they remain pretty cryptic.
Oh my god! Tell me more!
It's also around this time she gets introduced to the main antagonist of the game in the form of a rival rescue team led by Gengar known as Team Meanies.
The rescue team of evil, Team Meanies, is who we are. They're meanies!
I mean, this had to be the point I realized how deep the nostalgia river ran, right?
That's what I'm saying! Well, okay, I didn't predict world domination, but like, I don't really know how you could do that as a rescue team.
And these guys are called Team Meanies, for Christ's sakes. I get this is a kid's game marketed towards children, but they may as well be named Team Bad Guy or Team Evil. Doesn't necessarily take away from anything, but you're kidding yourself if you don't believe the two of us were in absolute stitches the first time we saw this.
They stole all of our letters. That's super illegal.
She butts heads with Team Meanies a couple times, but eventually she gets approached by the Jumpluff who asked Shiftry for help earlier. Apparently he still hasn't come back yet, and they're beginning to worry something may have gone wrong. This leads her team to the Silent Chasm, and one of the first dungeons where status effects start becoming more prolific.
So it's like for me, I'm like, okay, cool, I'm like getting the hang of this game. Like I'm able to like go through the caves.
Mechanically speaking, status like poison is a lot more unforgiving than in previous games, and especially if you aren't prepared to deal with it. Basically, poison lasts until you make it to the next floor, but it negates your natural health regeneration with chip damage every few steps. It can really whittle you down if you can't find the stairs, and its effects hurt the most at these lower levels when you have a smaller health pool. Losing 5 health every few steps hurts a lot more when your max health is 60 than when it's 160. Plenty of Pokemon in the Silent Chasm have the means to poison you, and I remember this dungeon being the wake-up call I needed as a kid to start packing Pecha Berries before my excursions.
Yanma wants to join my team. We have to go to like floor like 10, and I'm only on I'm on 3. He can make it.
After making it to the bottom, she finds the missing Jumpluff as well as Shiftry before being confronted with the first legendary Pokemon of the game.
The lights turned off. Oh god. It's coming. Oh my god.
Legendaries serve as major boss fights in the story, and are usually waiting at the end of the respective dungeons for a battle. In this case, Zapdos fittingly goes to wait for her at the peak of Mount Thunder, and she has to defeat it in order to rescue Shiftry.
Where the hell did Shiftry go? It's literally Zapdos. Scale Mount Thunder? Arrgh.
This is around the time it dawned on her that being a grass type might have sorta kinda been hard mode. Since Zapdos was part flying type, it meant that her attacks wouldn't do much damage. She could give support to her partner by hitting it with sleep powder over and over again, but the reality is his AI didn't exactly instill a lot of confidence.
Yo, Noikina knows Ember now. So he just uses it whenever he feels like, right?
Being an electric flying type, she decided a rock type would be just what she needed to cover her weakness. So she went to Mount Steel to recruit an old friend and turned this group into a power trio.
135. Yeah! Jeep!
With Jeep on the squad, she felt a lot of encouragement, but now that she has 2 party members, I think it's time to get down to brass tacks and finally discuss the companion AI. Playing around the game's poor AI is honestly a game in and of itself, and I find myself torn between how frustrating and fun it is all at the same time. Above all, I find it especially goofy that the poor AI is baked right into the game's core systems with the IQ stat. Basically, Pokemon can level up their IQ, which allows you, the player, to equip them with traits that affect how smart the AI behaves in the dungeons.
Why is Jeep using Mudsport? He's supposed to just walk.
These range from things as simple as not trying to use a status on an already affected Pokemon, to things even as basic as prioritizing super effective moves. All things that by today's standards should be a given in companion AI are gated behind some arbitrary stat that can only be leveled by consuming colorful jelly beans.
What is this? That looks like a bean. A white gummy. That is not what I thought that was.
Players like my girlfriend and my younger self may have even completely overlooked the system entirely in their initial dive into the series. The result being this weird in-between state where you micromanage your partner every single turn, and in a strange twist of fate, return to a menu-based battle system. I don't have to worry about my partner using the wrong move if I disable all but one of them for this turn, right?
Literally, you should only be able to Ember. Well, this went down, but Noiki, why aren't you using Ember? This is literally a Steel-type Pokemon.
On the one hand, the clunkiness and awkwardness of the systems were aggravating for my girlfriend, who was picking this up and playing for the first time. But for me, the charm was still there. I can concede and accept how wonky it all is in the grand scheme of things, but I also appreciate how intricate it can get, and felt the urge to take control in plenty of situations once the rust came off and I started remembering some of my old strategies.
I don't really understand why he's Mudsporting randomly, though.
He's just trying to be
Oh, Jeep.
Moves like Smokescreen and Charm are completely broken in the right hands, but you have to know how to properly marionette the AI to make the magic happen. There's just something inherently satisfying about making things work just how you want them to. Anyways, that was a lot of rambling.
Watts is just in danger. Something decided to start attacking it. And then he died, but luckily I had a revive seed. Because Watts got picked to fight.
At the top of Mount Thunder, Jeep finally gets his chance to show off what he's got, but the partner Pokemon kind of gimps the fight a bit here, which is a little annoying. Basically, there's a short cutscene at the beginning where Charmander gets all scared and then runs up on Zapdos and acts tough. Usually, boss fights in this game start with a tile between you and the opponent, which gives you a turn to set up some stuff. But here, the partner Pokemon's standing right in the line of fire, and Jeep and my girlfriend are put on the back foot because of it. Especially bad because you game over if the partner faints too. It's not limited to just the party leader.
Oh god. Holy shit.
Luckily, she threw a sleep seed at Zapdos and pushed up, but I remember losing this fight my first time as a kid because of the partner, and I clearly haven't been able to let it go in almost 20 years. Anyways, the fight was pretty light work thanks to her spamming sleep powder, basically keeping Zapdos stunned while her teammates pummeled it with rocks over and over again.
Holy shit, good work, guys. They put in work.
After winning, they get Shiftry back, and the Alpha team rolls up on us once again.
Oh my god, how did he just pull that one out of his hat?
They find out about my girlfriend being a human, and Alakazam tells her to go visit his buddy Xatu. This guy just stares in the sun all day, watches a ton of Christopher Nolan films, so he knows a thing or two about non-linear timelines.
That's not good for their eyes.
Basically, once she gets to the top, he imparts some wisdom about chakras and doing yoga every morning, and how she probably has something to do with the imbalance of the world and all the natural disasters.
He might not be as smart as I thought.
This would be fine and all, but unfortunately Gengar was eavesdropping, and that usually means trouble.
Team Meanies! How? Oh, Gengar, how is that going to be useful?
Pretty much anytime the game starts with a black screen that ominously says, "The next day," you can bet there's going to be some kind of important story beat coming up, and we're about to have quite a few. Everyone in town is gossiping about some legend involving Ninetales, and they tell us if we want to learn about it, we go and ask Wishcash in his pond. To give you the cliff notes, basically there was a wicked human being that grabbed one of Ninetales' 9 tails, and in doing so was cursed. A Gardevoir loyal to the trainer jumped in the way to protect them, but was fatally wounded in the process.
Its name is Guard.
As punishment, the trainer was turned into a Pokemon to atone for their crimes. So obviously this is kind of dramatic irony at work here, and we start believing that maybe we're that wicked human.
Uh-oh.
Kind of cool the game makes us second guess ourselves about what type of human we may have been before all of this. I know I was knocking it for being childish earlier with the whole Team Meanies thing, but this is actually a really cool story beat that respects the intelligence of its player. We end the day early because we're both kind of bummed out about this revelation, and lo and behold, we have another dream. These dream sequences have actually been about a Gardevoir. Suddenly my girlfriend's really starting to question if maybe she was the human from the legend.
It was shielded by Gardevoir. So are we the human who was cursed for 1,000 years, and that's why I've come back as a Pokemon?
You abandoned your Gardevoir?
No!
It's not helping our case to say the very least.
Man, I just had to touch that Ninetales tail, huh?
But things only get worse when we head to the town the next day and see Gengar slandering us in front of all the Pokemon.
Who's talking? Oh god, why are you guys believing the meanie? Ugh.
Mob mentality takes over quickly, and suddenly the friendly townspeople are after our heads.
No! He's spreading misinformation and fear tactics. Ugh! He's accusing me. It's not. Okay, I was a human, but we don't know for certain that this is what's going on. So everyone just breathe for a second. Noki, don't you dare confirm a damn thing. Keep your mouth shut. We need to call our lawyer.
They think that by getting rid of us, which is E for everyone for murder, will somehow stop the natural disasters.
What? Get rid of Tarny? Mob mentality. What? No, you don't get to say that type of shit and then attack me.
This is like some kind of tribal Pokemon witch hunt in order to appease the gods and stop the volcano from exploding. I'd say it's right about now that I started to reconsider my childhood wish of seeing what Pokemon would be like without any trainers around. Clearly, we've devolved into some kind of Lord of the Beautiful Eyes situation here, and it's time to get the heck out of Dodge.
No. I saved all y'all's asses.
We escape town and try to hide back at our rescue base, but then the Justice League rolls up on us prepared to collect their bounty.
Oh my god. No one is using their freaking brains.
Then they decide against it because they like the cut of our gym, but give us until morning to escape, and then promise to hunt us down like the most dangerous game.
What? What the hell?
worst part of all this is we're still not entirely sure whether or not we're actually the bad guys in all this.
Okay, that is not what I got from that conversation, Noiki.
But with no other options, all we can do is run away. We can't even bring Jeep along with us because we don't want him to be an accessory to the crime and have to face the gallows himself. So instead, we'll have to leave him and all our other team members behind while we roam the land as wanted fugitives.
I won't give up! Ah!
I just want to take a second to remind everyone that I'm describing a Pokemon game. Granted, it's a spin-off, but this game kind of goes hard, not gonna lie. Thinking about it, this might actually be where I learned the word fugitive for the first time, and I'm not even mad about it. This was such a crazy thing that happened, and I kind of respect the game for committing to it. For the next like 3 or 4 dungeons, we're literally on our own trying to escape the Pokemob. There's no shops or bank or anything, just the 2 of us and the clothes on our back against the world. God, I forgot how awesome this game was.
Field of Fire? Get out of there, you're a grass-type Pokemon.
After wandering the land for a few days, we make it to the first mystery dungeon in our fugitive lives. If you don't prepare ahead of time, you can get seriously screwed here, but luckily my girlfriend's the queen of overpacking, so she's got plenty of goodies with her.
Man, I thought I had a good understanding of like what this game was, and I was just gonna be being cute and like rescuing Pokemon in need, and like I was chill with that.
The game doesn't completely cut you off from resources, but if you aren't careful, you can death spiral pretty hard here. The Lapis Cave is only the first dungeon, and it's already a tough one. The game offers an alternative path, which I think was intended to be a way to level up and accumulate some items if you're struggling, but she made it through on the first go.
But now I'm on the run. No good deed goes unpunished, apparently.
The dungeons we encounter on our new fugitive arc all happen to completely body the grass type, which is a real shame for her though. And that's probably best illustrated by the next area, aptly named Mount Blaze. This place is chock full of fire types, which really sucks for a Bulbasaur. But to make matters worse, a lot of them have immunity to fire attacks thanks to Flash Fire, which completely neuters Charmander as well.
Yeah, I had no idea what dungeon I was gonna be in when I ended up with Bulbasaur.
Yeah, the climb up this one was far from easy, but that's not even including the boss fight waiting for her at the top. Thankfully, Reviver Seeds come in clutch in situations like this. Even with careful play and abusive sleep powder, the game likes to pull its BS and make things harder than they have to be.
What? No, my Reviver Seed! This happens every time.
As if a quad resistance to grass wasn't daunting enough, Charmander misses like every other attack. The real saving grace here was definitely the linked moves.
Yo! Yo! Go, Norky! He got the attack boost!
After beating the Moltres, we move on to a Frosted Forest, and probably the most difficult boss fight in the entire game. Say I don't want to spoil it, but I bet you can probably tell what it is, considering we fought these 2 guys earlier, and we're in an ice biome. Either way, grass is still weak to ice, so it's going to be another tough battle.
It turned into a nose pass. I don't really know why.
I mentioned linked moves a moment ago, and I think it's time I discuss what they are and how they work. Put simply, you can link moves together and perform both moves in a single action. Obviously, this is extremely broken in its own right, but it does come with some caveats. For one thing, it utilizes the power points of both the moves, and should one run out, then the 2 moves become unlinked. Moves can only be linked at Gulpin in Pokemon Square, unless you're lucky enough to find a link box. But in her case, my girlfriend linked up a bunch of her moves before becoming a vagabond.
We have to find the truth, that way we're not fugitives anymore. What the hell?
She's just been really diligent about not letting her PP run out the past few dungeons. But it's been tricky since the legendary birds all have the ability Pressure, which makes moves cost twice as much. In large part, these linked moves are part of how she's made it as far as she has as an underleveled grass type.
I think it's cool though, because in the first games, these 3 are kind of hidden. So I love that they take a more central role.
At the end of the Frosty Forest, she has her showdown with Articuno, and probably the most difficult boss fight in the entire game. And it all comes down to one move, and that move is Powder Snow. In the mainline games, this move isn't much of a problem, just a weak ice attack that most low-level ice types know. However, in Mystery Dungeon, this move is an absolute force of destruction that hits the entire room. That means nowhere is safe for her 2 Pokemon, and when Articuno uses it, both she and her partner were guaranteed to go down.
Please stay asleep.
We got stuck here for a while because she only had 1 Reviver Seed, and since Powder Snow hit both of them, it wasn't enough to stay alive. Strategy became beating Articuno before it got the chance to use the move in the first place, which seemed like questionable game design, but regardless, the only way to pull this off was ironically with the move Frustration.
That is a genuine concern.
Since Articuno is yet again resistant to grass, she couldn't rely on her Vine Whip. Fortunately, she'd linked her Vine Whip to Frustration, which works a little bit differently in this game. Usually, Return and Frustration scale in damage based off of a Pokemon's friendship in the baseline games, but since that stat is absent here, they scale with IQ. The lower a Pokemon's IQ, the more damage Frustration will do. And since my girlfriend hasn't raised hers at all, it's dealing 45 damage a pop. It's not much, but with Charmander's Ember, it was just enough to earn a victory.
Nice! Nice! Whoo!
So we finally make it to Mount Freeze, which is yet another ice area, so pour one more out for the grass types. This is kind of beside the fact, but I always thought it was weird as a kid that Articuno wasn't fought on Mount Freeze. Like Zapdos gets Mount Thunder, Moltres gets Mount Blaze. I mean, it wouldn't be such a big deal if they just left Articuno in Frosty Forest and called it a day, but they immediately followed up with a second ice area named Mount Freeze. Just kind of feels like a slap in the face. Anyways, maybe I'm just being pedantic.
Oh, something else can throw rocks?
My girlfriend sees another vision of Gardevoir at the base of the mountain, and apparently this is where Ninetales lives. I guess we can climb to the top and ask ourselves if she was actually the one from the legend or not. This dungeon is pretty tough, but not nearly as bad now that she has a third team member. After scaling to the summit, she's confronted by the Ace team once more, and they're out for blood. They followed us all the way here, and now it's time for a battle. Or at least that's how it looked. Ninetales interrupts right as we start fighting, but it always seemed kind of weird that this wasn't a boss battle to me.
I don't understand how violence is going to cause... We're all dueling out! I don't know how violence is going to create peace. Thank God someone has a head on their shoulders.
Despite that, we learned from Ninetales that my girlfriend was not in fact the human from the legend, and we're finally exonerated from our crimes.
Oh, he's dancing and hugging me. Oh, look at how happy he is in the portrait. Oh.
Alakazam's team starts joking about how they'd never doubted us for a second, even though they were minutes away from tearing poor little Charmander to pieces, but evidently my girlfriend didn't buy into their claims.
Sure, Charizard.
I guess we'll forgive them since Tyranitar is one of her favorite Pokemon. Just when things are starting to cool off, an earthquake starts up, and apparently Groudon is the source.
Oh my God. Groudon! All the legendary Pokemon are rising.
Team Act volunteers to deal with it, and we get to go home and finally get some much needed rest. Upon arrival, Gengar's still up to his old tricks, but the townspeople decide they've had enough of his smear campaign and run him out of town.
Yeah! You stand up, Tim Caterpie. Woo! We had to go on this whole arduous journey just because they got duped.
We file a defamation suit and head back to Rescue Team Base to pick things up where we left off. We even get to see Jeep again.
It's so cute. It's relaxing in his favorite spot. Jeep!
For the time being, the game slows down in the story department quite a bit, and I think it's warranted due to how heavy the whole wanted fugitive thing was. I kid you not, as a child, I thought I'd beaten the game at this point. The credits didn't roll, but as far as I was concerned, I was exonerated and back to just playing rescue missions. I was completely convinced I was in the post-game for this section, and I kind of miss how simple games used to be back then to me. My girlfriend got to this point in the game after 2 days of playing, so it's kind of hilarious to think the kid me played about 6 hours of the game and was like, yeah, I've seen it all.
Bum ba ba bum ba da bum ba ba dum ba. I always come out of my house and then look both ways, and then Wiki rolls up. He's like, "What's up, Tiny?"
Regardless, we do a couple more missions before being approached by a Wyna and Wobbuffet, who ask us to go out and look at the bulletin board by the post office. This whole section feels so awkward because we go from fighting legendary birds at the end of dungeons to fighting a bunch of hangry monkeys. They go down to a single razor leaf each. To make a long story short, we end up trading them chestnuts in exchange for manual labor to renovate our team base. When all is said and done, it looks quite cool, and I've actually never seen the grass type base before, so it was fun discovering this together.
It was completed! Oh my God, look at the roses! Finally, this day has arrived. Oh, Noiki, he's getting so happy. Us and all of our friends made it. It looks like a Bulbasaur! Ah!
There's a lot of downtime once the base gets renovated, so while she's busy doing missions for more Reviver Seeds, I'll briefly touch on the Mystery Dungeon genre. The game almost plays like a roguelike dungeon crawler, and each of the different Pokemon types or classes you can spec into. It's a pretty unique take on the formula, and there's a ton of replayability to it. As a kid, I remember having both copies of the game, since my parents didn't realize they were the same one, because one was for the DS and one was for the Game Boy. I remember sinking tons of time into the DS copy and getting a ton of post-game dungeons cleared and legendaries recruited, but the Game Boy copy is one I just constantly restart over and over, try out different starters and partner pairs. I even remember rescuing myself using the DS copy when my Game Boy copy would faint using the dual slot in the DS.
Wow, perfect! Perfect! I cannot believe that I found Bullet Seed, because it was like 6,000 in the shop.
It's quite the deviation from the usual formula, but I do think the games are worth a try even if you are a die-hard fan of the mainline series. There's something to be said for appreciating these familiar characters in a new light, and I wouldn't be upset if they revived this series with a brand new game after replaying this one and seeing all the cool and fresh ideas it had going for it. I know I've harped a bit on how clunky it can be, but I remember the sequels ironing out a lot of stuff and having tons of quality of life improvements, so I'm sure there's some untapped potential here. Anyways, that's enough rambling again.
A Reviver Seed in the tiny woods? Are you kidding me?
Barb, I know what we're gonna do today.
It's been a few days in game, and the earthquake's getting worse. No one's heard back from Alakazam's team, so a bunch of Pokemon in the square have gathered for a town meeting and decided to send in a squad of elite rescuers to go and see what the hell's going on down there.
Everyone is being a chicken!
I'll go.
Whoa!
It's Blastoise!
Blastoise! Whose team is he?
That's all well and good, but a few more days pass, and they wind up back in town bruised worse than their egos.
No! What the hell?
Gengar even shows up and starts his shenanigans again, but the rescue team manages to inspire everyone.
I think Gengar is the person who dipped on their Gardevoir.
We give a speech about how we're supposed to be rescue teams, and that this is exactly the type of thing we're best at. Team Ace needs rescue, and it's up to us to go and save them. God, I love this game.
Ah! Hell yeah, we are!
It's a little sappy, but damn if seeing that little Charmander speak about the power of friendship doesn't make me get fired up. My girlfriend too, but honestly, that shouldn't come as a surprise. She's always been a sucker for friendship power.
Ah, we're all gonna go! Yeah! Woo!
So the next day we roll out to go and fight Groudon. In theory, this should be the first boss fight where we have a type advantage because he's the only non-flying boss in the entire main story. Of course, that's ignoring the fact that this dungeon is literally called Magma Cavern and is flooded with fire types which could burn her to a crisp.
That looks so cool and terrifying. Oh, I'm nervous.
The good news is none of that matters anymore, because she learned the move Bullet Seed, which might just be the single most powerful tool the grass type has in its entire arsenal.
So good.
Put bluntly, this move absolutely shreds anything in its path. I think she found the TM for it somewhere in Uproar Forest on a mission, but basically anything that hits multiple times in this game is stupidly powerful. Bullet Seed can hit 2 to 5 times, but on top of that, it has a range of 10 tiles. That means she could just fire this thing down a long hallway, and any Pokemon sorry enough to be standing down range was as good as dead. This move carried her through the rest of the game and trivialized her battles so long as she had the PP to use it. Now, this dungeon was always my favorite when I was younger because of how often the tile set swaps. The deeper you get, the hotter the rooms feel, and by the time you make it to the bottom, you can just tell the magma is scorching.
I know who's making earthquakes. No! Charizard Tyranitar!
She finds Charizard and Tyranitar knocked out on the penultimate floor, and apparently Alakazam is still fighting the thing. It's literally been over a week since these guys first disappeared, and apparently he's been fighting it this whole time. We go on to help, but arrive just in time to see him get wiped. The fight's kind of funny because Groudon starts super far away, which allows my girlfriend to just unload bullet seeds on him for like 3 straight turns as he approaches.
Ooh! Oh! We go again. We go again. He's like, ah! We go again. He's gotta do a slow walk to us. We go again. Sleep. Yeah! Damn! That was awesome! All of the team, Ace team, they're here.
With that disaster quelled, we finally brought peace back to the world, or so we thought. Xatu sends out a Chi Mind Blast, telling all the Pokemon within a 6-mile radius that basically the world's ending. We're all going to be wiped out Phantom Menace style when a meteor hits the Earth, unless we go ask Rayquaza for help up on Sky Pillar.
Oh my god. It's gonna crash.
No Strike Force gets formed this time because everyone unanimously agrees that the 2 unevolved starters and a rock with arms are our best chance at survival. We're given a day to prep, and the game does that cool thing where the music persists past the cutscene into the gameplay. She grabs every bottle of elixir she's stocked up till now and fills the rest of her inventory with Reviver Seeds, because she's not going down without a fight.
Woo!
We have our final dream sequence with Gardevoir here, and although Gengar tries to ruin it with his Dream Eater, he ends up running off with his tail between his legs. Gardevoir finally reveals that the reason my girlfriend was turned into a Pokemon in the first place was to save the world from this falling star. Go figure. And along with that, once she's served her purpose, she'll be turned back into a human. Wait, what?
I don't want to leave Noiki behind. We're a rescue team. No, we're meant to be together. No.
Saving the world's good and all, but my girlfriend's grown a little attached to all the friends she's made along the way. Now you're telling her she's gonna have to give it all up?
What? Way to guilt trip.
It's a little saddening, but the alternative is letting everyone perish, so her choice is made up pretty quickly. All that's left is to climb the final dungeon of the game and face the sky-high Pokemon in one final showdown.
Let's do this. Eee!
My girlfriend has had an interesting relationship with Rayquaza over the years, and without spoiling too much from our other videos, I'll just throw out the irony of fighting yet another Pokemon, a dragon flying type, who quad resists grass type moves.
Oh, we're in the sky. We just blocked. Oh no, everyone's shaking it off.
This dungeon is longer than any of the others by a long shot.
That's been the biggest gamble this whole journey. It's just, what will Noiki do at each turn? Is he gonna just bop for 6? Yeah, if anything. Is he gonna bop for 6 or flamethrower for 120? We can't be sure.
It has a checkpoint in the middle, thankfully, but still has 9 more floors to climb afterwards.
I do not like these like maze-like tiny little webby floors.
Once she finally made it to the top, it was time to square up and pray that those bullet seeds land.
Rayquaza never stops being cool. Me too. Keep just putting in nothing but the finest. Yeah! Ah! Good work, everybody! Good work! Oh my god! And Hardy leveled! Oh my god! They did it as friends! We spent all this time fighting you. Why? Have we not shown the resolve already? We accepted that from the start! Just do the hyper beam! Well said! Oh my god! Take charge of your destiny! Ah! That was so awesome! We were part of this! Wow!
Falling Star was destroyed and the world was saved. Now things can go back to normal and everyone can live peacefully again.
Look, everyone's cheering and celebrating at the square! Aww, Wish Cash! I only talked to him like twice, but he's cheering too.
But not without the game getting extremely sad before the credits roll.
You will always be my friend, Noiki. Oh, I will never forget you. Oh, now I'm tearing up. Don't go, Tiny. I'm blessed to have met you. What am I gonna do when you're gone, Tiny? Oh, bye, everybody. Oh, I'm like a light. I'm going away. I'm going home.
My girlfriend's emotional response to the ending is proof enough that it had an impact on her, that she developed a strong connection to its characters. Sure, the story is goofy at times and lighthearted for the most part, but the moments are endearing enough that the ending evokes genuine sadness when it comes time to say goodbye.
Why? Oh, I'm crying. Why didn't Tiny tell me earlier? If this was coming. Why didn't Tiny tell me? I'm sorry, little Noiki.
Despite the seemingly bottomless well of post-game stuff to do in Pokemon games, the finality of this ending is a lot closer to what my girlfriend experiences. Usually, once she beats a game, she'll set it down and that's that. She really does say goodbye to all the friends she made along the way in the game, because often she'll never go back and see them again.
Your friend is heartbroken. I know, Noiki, I'm sorry. A true friend, a friend for life.
She's not going to play the post-game and sink a dozen more hours into it, so this may as well be her ending for the game. Of course, that doesn't mean she can't at least end things on a happy note.
If you wish and wish very strongly. Wait, can I go back and hang out with Noiki? Can I stay a Pokemon? Wait! Is that me? Is that me in the orb? I'm back! I'm hopping over to Noiki! Oh my god, everyone's cheering! I'm back!
At the outset of this video, I posed a question. Is this game as good as I remembered, or is it all just riding on nostalgia? Having sent my girlfriend on a journey through it as a means to relive the experience for myself, I think it's safe to say the game excels in providing that warm, fuzzy feeling. Even up to the moment where her Bulbasaur tells us she's sorry she couldn't show us Xanarkin, my girlfriend remained invested in the characters and the story.
The story of Tiny and Noiki ends here! killed one of them anyway.
I really discredited this game when we first decided to make the video, and I regret not having more faith in it because having replayed it, I remember what an important part of my childhood it was. Despite its clunky moments, overall the game is a happy, wholesome one. It encapsulates a journey supported by loyal friends, and at the end of the day, it never stops finding ways to make the player smile.
Due to Tarny and Noiki's heroic actions, the falling star was destroyed. And peace returned to the world of Pokemon!
For my girlfriend, beyond the novelty of simply playing as a Pokemon, the depth of her adventure made for an unforgettable journey. Yes, the nostalgia is certainly there, but no, it's not just nostalgia alone. This game stands comfortably on its own 2 feet, and you don't need a girlfriend to go and see it for yourself.